As hip-hop exploded from the streets to the big screen, its unique fashion followed with it, becoming more than just style, but the very backbone of the movement itself. People like Rakim, Eric B, LL Cool J, Tupac, Mike Tyson, and many more helped the rise of the hip-hop fashion. But the origins go back to one man, and one small shop in Harlem, in 1982. David Day, better known as Dapper Dan, opened up his small boutique in Harlem in 1982. David had an idea which would soon prove to be a gold mine. He would buy designer stuff, take it apart, and transform it into something different. Soon customers flocked in, and Dapper Dan's boutique was the place to go for custom-made products. From athletes and rappers to all kinds of celebrities would go to buy custom-made leather jackets or tracksuits or bags and hats at Dapper Dan's shop, and even redesigning car interiors at one point.
Like I say, it's statement clothing. The red, green, and the black, very political clothing. People want their own logo all over it. They want their name, It's an extension of the status thing. I want my name. My gold chains will show my status. Tyson and LL and Big Daddy Kane, the guys who be here, they almost here every day.
Business was going very well, but there was a big problem. Dan used logos from famous brands like Gucci, Fendi, and Louis Vuitton in his products without authorization, which was a huge mistake. It was street remixing meets luxury couture decades ahead of its time. But the luxury brands didn't see it that way, of course. It all went mainstream when Mike Tyson, who was wearing one of his jackets customized by Dan, got into a fight outside the shop with Mitch Green in 1988. Since Tyson was one of the biggest celebrities at the time, it was all over the newspapers showing Mike in that custom Fendi jacket. When Fendi executives saw it in newspapers, they traced it back to Harlem and Dan's shop and filed a lawsuit against him for trademark infringement and counterfeit use of their logos. Fendi's lawyers, alongside other luxury houses like Gucci and Vuitton, pressured him to shut down his store. By 1992, the original Dapper Dan boutique was raided and closed. Feds reportedly confiscated all designer-branded materials and garments. For years afterwards, he was blacklisted by the mainstream fashion industry. Dan was out of business, but he inspired others, and the rise of hip-hop fashion was in full motion. When hip-hop started taking over the airwaves in the early 90s with the rise of gangster rap, the streets also spoke through fashion. Style became the heartbeat of the culture, and two names stood out. In LA, Cross Colors carried a strong message of unity and pride. In Brooklyn, Karl Kani redefined denim for a new generation, representing the message of empowerment and self-made success. Cross Colors gave hip-hop a visual representation of cultural unity. Kani gave it a sense of power and ownership. Founded in 1989 by Carl Jones and T.J. Walker with the slogan "Clothing Without Prejudice," Cross Colors was one of the first fashion brands created specifically for hip-hop culture. It promoted racial equality, social awareness, and positive identity during a time when hip-hop was becoming the voice of young Black America. The late 80s and early 90s were a turbulent time in America. Racial tensions were high, especially in LA, where police brutality and economic inequality shaped everyday life. Hip-hop became the raw voice of that struggle, and Cross Colors became its wardrobe. The brand exploded in the early 90s, and their big break came in 1990 by Will Smith, who was wearing one of their designs on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. His stylist received some free samples from the brand owners, and Will liked the clothes and wore them. The show was a hit, and suddenly millions of viewers were seeing hip-hop fashion on primetime television. This had a snowball effect for the brand, as it was later being worn by artists like Tupac, TLC, and Criss Cross, and it was featured in countless other music videos. It became the first major bridge between hip-hop and mainstream fashion, giving the culture a look that reflected the message of the music. For the first time, a clothing line wasn't just inspired by the culture, it was a part of its DNA. While Cross Colors represented unity and social change, Karl Kani symbolized the individual dream. Born Carl Williams in Brooklyn, he grew up fascinated by both hip-hop and high-end fashion, but he saw how the luxury world ignored young Black men like him. So he was determined to pursue his own dream and founded Karl Kani in 1989. His clothing designs, from baggy jeans, heavy denim, bold logos, and statement outfits, matched the energy of the streets. His big break came when Tupac was wearing his outfit in one of his photo shooting sessions. After seeing Tupac wearing his gear, Kani arranged a meeting with him and asked how much Pac would charge him to appear in an advertisement. And to his surprise, Pac responded, "I don't charge my people for nothing." And Pac did the ad for free to support Kani's work.
What happened was Tupac used to wear a lot of my clothing, and we met him at the Hotel Nico on La Cienega in Beverly Hills, and we go to his room, and he's sitting in there and he's on a laptop and he's typing a script to a movie. So we walk into his room. So I was trying to wait for a break in the conversation to ask him what I wanted to ask him. So I said, "Yo, Pac, so how much you charge me to do an ad?" And he stopped typing and the whole room got quiet. And he was just sitting there looking down at his computer. I was thinking to myself, damn, I fucked up. I don't know what I did. So he goes, "Yo, man, I ain't gonna charge you, man, you black." He said, "I don't charge my people for nothing."
Karl Kani became a symbol of black entrepreneurship and a concrete proof that young black designers didn't have to wait for validation from big fashion houses. Other celebrities soon followed. Biggie Smalls, Aaliyah, and Nas were often seen wearing Kani's designs. Even Michael Jackson, the king of pop, wore Karl Kani gear in public, a monumental crossover moment that brought hip-hop fashion into the global mainstream. He became the first urban designer to hold a major runway show in Europe, becoming the bridge between streetwear and luxury fashion. Together, Cross Colors and Karl Kani changed how the world saw hip-hop and how the culture saw itself. They gave people from Harlem, Compton, and Brooklyn something powerful, something that identifies them, something that belongs to them. They gave them confidence on their sleeves. By the mid-90s, despite its massive popularity, Cross Colors just grew too big too fast, and there was a problem in the business model and not in the product itself. They couldn't keep up with massive retail demand from big department stores like Macy's and Mervyn's. Their production chain was overwhelmed, leading to delayed deliveries, missed shipments, and shortages. Retailers started pulling orders, and sales plummeted. Cross Colors was heavily dependent on the national retail chain Merry-Go-Round for sales. When MGR went bankrupt in 1994, Cross Colors lost a significant portion of its business overnight, along with millions of dollars in inventory and unpaid orders. By 1996, Cross Colors had filed for bankruptcy and disappeared from store shelves almost overnight. Kani became known as the Ralph Lauren of the streets, and by 1995 his brand was selling in over 20 countries, generating tens of millions of dollars annually. As hip-hop evolved, so did its fashion, and competition intensified. New brands like Fubu and Phat Farm, and later Rocawear and Sean John began taking over the market with huge celebrity backing and corporate distribution power. Kani, though respected, couldn't match their scale, especially when brands like Tommy Hilfiger, Adidas, Nike, Coogee, and Versace got embraced by the hip-hop community. His brand slowly lost shelf space and visibility in major retail chains. By the late 90s, Karl Kani was no longer dominating mainstream fashion, though he remained a respected name in streetwear. As Kani was slowly fading away, Fubu, who began in 1992 originally as a hat company founded by Damon John and his childhood friends, was getting closer to take over the leadership from Kani by the end of mid-90s. Fubu continued a similar message of self-ownership and entrepreneurship, while on the other side Russell Simmons had a different vision and launched Phat Farm also in 1992. Unlike Fubu's grassroots hustle, Phat Farm began inside high-end department stores like Bloomingdale's and Macy's. Russell Simmons wanted to bridge the hip-hop fashion world with the corporate one. Fubu's turning point came in 1997 when LL appeared in a Gap commercial where he masterfully sneaked in the official Fubu slogan in his raps on the Gap commercial.
You're falling, once you hear the Gap calling, you can't resist the shopping, big ballin', not stopping, yes, y'allin', jeans popping in every mall in town, the city, GAP, gritty, ready to go, for us, by us, on the low, G, that's for getting the A for always, P, that's for power and the people that praise backwards, P for popular, A for attitude, G, get it going, Daddy, Gap is on the move. How easy is this? Fall into the Gap.
Millions of viewers saw it. Gap didn't even realize they'd just paid to advertise their competitor. That single moment turned Fubu into a national sensation. By the late 90s, Fubu was everywhere. You saw it in music videos, TV shows, and award shows worn by artists like Ludacris, Fat Joe, Nelly, Will Smith, and many more. At its peak, Fubu made over $350 million in annual revenue and sold in over 5,000 stores worldwide. On the other hand, Russell Simmons was trying to position hip-hop not as a rebellion, but as a refined cultural force. Phat Farm's visibility skyrocketed because of Def Jam artists and its massive media exposure. While it was not on the level of success at which Fubu was, it surely did leave its imprint on the culture. But the world was changing fast. The early 2000s marked a time for a change. Youth fashion was shifting towards sleeker minimalist streetwear. Fubu's core audience grew up, and the younger generation started gravitating towards Rocawear or Sean John and luxury labels like Gucci, Versace, and Louis Vuitton. Fubu failed to adapt to the trends of the new generation, and its popularity declined almost overnight. Retail partners backed out, and by 2003 the brand had lost its dominant position. Phat Farm had become too clean-cut for the new generation, and the Def Jam connection weakened after Russell sold his stake in the company in 2004 to Kelwood for about $140 million. Without Russell's personal touch and hip-hop credibility, Phat lost its identity. Fubu and Phat were slowly fading, and Rocawear, Sean John, and others took over as the new upcoming wave of hip-hop fashion. While Fubu and Phat were still there, other brands surfaced like Echo Academic, Sean John, and G-Unit Clothing. However, one of them stood out from the crowd, and that was Rocawear. By 2002, in just 3 years from when it was founded by Jay and Dame, Rocawear was generating $700 million in annual sales, making it the top urban clothing brand in America. It became the face of hip-hop fashion.
I want to show that artists can ascend to the executive ranks. Rocawear just keeps reinventing itself and redefining itself every single day.
You know, fashion has changed a lot over the last 12 years, particularly urban fashion.
When these brands were first born, they were born off the enthusiasm and excitement of hip-hop music and hip-hop culture. That culture has transcended its original boundaries. I think now it's much wider.
Like anything else, once it gets wide, once it gets bigger than, you know, the definition of urban when it first started, now you have to be very elastic. You have to be able to go further.
I think that what we're doing with this company will be something that people talk about 25 years from now, very similar to Berry Gordy and Motown Records. There's a cultural significance to what we do here.
Rocawear. Oh man, I can go back probably 7th grade. I got my first Rocawear jacket. I think it was like a bomber coat. It's like winter time, and you know, Jay always been my favorite rapper, period. You know what I'm saying? So my mom's gave me that. That was just like I was a part of something now. You know what I'm saying? It was Christmas time. She gave me the jacket. I felt like I'm part of the movement, the whole Rockefeller movement. So it was just more than a jacket for me.
I think it's really blurred the lines. I think people's understanding of urban, it's still stuck in an old school train of thought. However, it's evolved to something much bigger than that. I mean, I would argue that Nike is probably one of the most urban brands in the world, but people don't think of it that way because in their minds, you know, urban means, you know, Sean John and Phat Farm and Rocawear, when quite honestly, like I said, you know, Levi's and Nike and even Polo to a certain extent are extremely urban. The challenges then were really to just, you know, to no longer rest on the laurels of people being excited about hip hop music, but turn it into a company that had great executives, that had great design, that had great fabrication.
The design of the clothing, it went to a much more refined fit. They did a much better job at making jeans than everybody else at a time when the jeans business was a big part of urban fashion. That gave them, being on top of trend and being on top of design also gave them the added ammunition to stay in the game much longer than the other guys.
It's a real moment in history right now because if we don't do a good job, it could be you know, a dramatic shift for something that's really powerful. I mean, if you think about these brands that were born from a music, from a culture, that typically does not happen. The ability for these musicians to create this industry and this commerce that, yeah, it started with fashion. There's a whole industry that was born from this culture that is so important. And if we start to allow the deterioration of that, then what happens after that? So I think that there's a cultural responsibility for us to get this thing right. And it's you know, it's multifaceted.
I'm very disappointed the brand is compromised. I never thought that could ever happen. Like, I love for everybody, really. But sometimes people do things that just aren't uncharacteristic of what I thought they were. With Jay, I just keep hearing homeboy keep saying my name. You know what I'm saying? People think I'm the one that makes people say those things. I'm the one that really I'd rather protect that legacy.
Behind the scenes, the situation at Rocawear was quickly changing. Jay-Z and Dame, once inseparable two friends, began clashing over control, money, and vision for the company. Jay was corporate-minded and influenced by Def Jam executives, so he wanted to elevate the brand to a luxury status, aligning more with Gucci and Louis Vuitton. While Dame wanted to keep it street and raw, loyal to the culture and the people who made it famous in the first place. In 2006, their partnership ended bitterly. Jay-Z took control of Rocawear, while Dame sold his shares for around $25 million and walked away to start his new ventures. The following year, Jay-Z sold the Rocawear clothing brand to Iconics Group for $204 million, but he kept creative control and a percentage of the company. In the upcoming years, Rocawear slowly faded away and lost the throne, marking the end of the golden era of hip-hop fashion.